This week on the podcast, we want you to be our guests and joining us to talk to you about 1991 and 2017's Beauty and the Beast. Podcast where we talk about your favorite films and film franchises. And today we are starting off a month full of Disney love as we celebrate 100 years of Disney. We also decided, hey, why not do some animated movies, since I think we've done maybe one or two animated movies on this show in the almost 100 episodes we've done. So we figured, since Disney is 100 years old now, we should talk about some of them. And what better way, though, not just talking about one movie, but we're going to be putting two movies face to face versus each other as we talk about the animated versus the live action remakes. So each one of us has picked a movie that has a live action remake, and we're going to put them against each other. And for the first week, we are going with Angela's pick, which she chose 1991's Beauty and the Beast, which got a live-action remake in 2017. We're going to be going through the plot of the original story, of the original movie, and then we're going to be kind of talking about the live-action version in a way where we're going to be talking about the things that they added, the music they added, because the remake is almost an hour longer than the animated movie. Why? I don't know. It didn't need to be, but we're going to get to it. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Dan, and Angela of DNA Gaming.
Gotta do it. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, whoa.
Sorry, dude.
Whoa.
That's all you're getting out of me today.
Aww.
Dan's not feeling so hot today, but he's here as he's a trooper, as always. Especially for, this episode. You figured, just... It'd be like, yeah, guys, I'm going to take the week off. But no, he's here.
I don't mind.
I told him he didn't have to come.
I don't mind Disney movies, so.
I know.
So let's talk a little bit about we're going to talk about the animated version, because I feel like that's the one that's most beloved when it comes to Beauty and the Beast. So Angela, since this is your pick, what do you remember the first time you ever saw Beauty and the Beast?
No. I remember watching it. I just don't remember when. I know it was when I was a kid. Because growing up, I didn't meet very many Angelas, and I hated my name. So I watched this, learned about... I think I watched Murder, She Wrote first with Angela Lansbury. I think I watched Murder, She Wrote first, and then Beauty and the Beast. I don't remember which order they came into my life in, but I was like, oh, Angela Lansbury, she's cool. So I suddenly started liking my name. But no, I don't know. I don't know how long it's been since I've watched the animated one, and I can still sing all the songs. It's one of those that just forever will be in your head. One of those not useless facts, but one of those things that gets tucked away. Mm-hmm. That can never be replaced by anything else.
Dan.
No, I don't remember either. I remember the advertisements for it on TV, and I remember the big hullabaloo about it, and vaguely. And I also remember, like, my mom used to watch Entertainment Tonight a lot. And I remember them talking about it a lot on there, just because I know I think it got awards. I don't know, probably best animated movie surely that year came out.
So it was actually the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars in 1992, but it lost out to Silence of the Lambs. And it wasn't, I don't think they had the Oscar for Best Animated films yet. I think actually because of this movie, they added the category of Best Animated Film.
Oh, okay. That
But it
makes
did win
sense.
for Best Original Song for Beauty and the Beast. And there was one other one. Scroll down here. It won for Best Original Song and Best Original Score.
Gotcha.
So
I don't know there's more. That's it. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't know there was supposed to be more.
I was just waiting.
Oh, please.
Beauty and the Beast, it definitely being a man or back then a boy, Beauty and the Beast wasn't the one you watched a lot as a kid. This was a girly movie. But I appreciated it for what it was, the animation style. It was the change of Disney coming out of the 80s, starting with Little Mermaid in 1989, and then it went into Beauty and the Beast. It was that different art style. They were starting to incorporate not just the traditional animation, but also they were incorporating CGI into the animation, as we'll talk about when we get to the ballroom scene. But I appreciated the story. I thought the story was pretty unique. As a kid, I didn't realize it was based off of a fairy tale. I thought this was, most of these Disney stories, I thought they were original Disney stories till you look back and like, Disney didn't have original stories. They were all based on other things.
And bad things.
Yeah. But it wasn't, this is actually my wife's favorite Disney movie. So actually, as you can see, I have my Beauty and the Beast shrine behind me. I have the original VHS that I used to watch as a kid, and then I have the Blu-ray and the DVD. But yeah, it's a movie that is hard to forget. The themes are pretty cut and dry, and the story is, it's unique in a way, and the voice acting and the animation, as I stated, and of course you can't get the songs out of your goddamn head, as are most Disney songs.
Yes.
So this, of course, as we were stating, this was based on a 1756 fairy tale of the same name by Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont. So that's why this story takes place in France, with nobody speaking French, or with only one character who has a French accent. I always found that so funny. And then when they move on to the live action remake, they did the same thing. There's just nobody who's French.
Yes.
Except for Lemire.
A little bit of French dialogue is used.
Yeah, they throw around some
but that's
words.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
But this has been turned into many different. I guess there was a Beauty and the Beast movie that was made in like the 30s. There was actually a silent film done. I think that was the first time Beauty and the Beast was ever put on screen. It's been on Broadway. It's been, it was a TV show, had Ron Perlman in it. I don't know if you guys remember that. Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton of Terminator fame who played Belle. But yeah, this was this movie, this movie put Disney back on the map, because as popular as Little Mermaid was in 1989, this movie just busted the doors open for Disney, because they were starting to go on such a decline. The 80s was not a good time for Disney. And this, like I stated before, this was the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture. Not just Best Animated Film. Like, you'll never see an animated film be put on Best Picture again, because they have their own category now. But like, that's just how big this was. The music, it revolutionized animation. It put Disney on a pedestal that I still think companies are still trying to get to, even though I think certain companies are getting pretty close. But yeah, this is a monumental film in not just Disney's repertoire, but just animation as a whole. The cast is pretty good here. We have Paige O'Hara as Belle. She pretty much is just well known for playing Belle. She pretty much did her voice up until, I think her last time she did her voice was in Ralph Breaks the Internet in 2018. We have Robbie Benson as the Beast. He's not a lot going on here, a lot of TV. He was on some episodes of Friends. And I guess, according to IMDb, he actually auditioned to play Luke Skywalker in Star Wars.
Hmm.
There you go.
Interesting.
We have Richard White, who is the voice of Gaston. A lot of Broadway stuff. A lot of the people who did the voices in this, not like bigger actors who've done a lot of movies, a lot of Broadway performers, because of course these movies have a lot of songs in them, so you have to have some sort of singing voice. But then we get to some big ones like Jerry Orbach. Of course, he's huge in, why am I blanking? Law and Order. Jesus Christ. Which is wild. Because I watched Law and Order a lot as a kid, probably way too much as a kid. And so Jerry Orbach was a big time in my life. And I think I watched a lot of Law and Order and then was told he was the voice of Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast. I was like, nah, no way. It doesn't sound even close to that.
Yeah.
But it just shows how good of an actor he was. We have David Ogden Stiers, who was Cogsworth and the narrator. Didn't even know there was a narrator in this movie. Angela Lansbury, who was Mrs. Potts. Rex Everhart, who was the voice of the father, Maurice, who also was in the first Friday the 13th movie. Played the truck driver.
Yep.
And then we have Jesse Corti, who played LeFou. And then there was the voice of Chip was also the actor who played the kid from Jumanji. The original Jumanji, the one, the kid who's Kirsten Dunst's brother in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked that up and I was like, oh shit, no way. That's crazy.
I can see that.
Yeah. So this movie was directed by Gary Trousdale and Kurt Wise. They also would go on to do Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1996 and Atlantis, the Lost Empire in 2001. The music was done by Alan Menken, he's just a absolute legend when it comes to Disney scores. I mean, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas. He even did music for Little Shop of Horrors, Newsies, Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tangled, Enchanted. I mean, this man is just legendary across the board when it comes to music. And of course, as we stated before, he won an Oscar for Best Original Score and for Best Original Song, which there were 3 Beauty and the Beast songs up for Oscars that year for Best Original Song. So one of them was, they had a very good chance of one winning. This was released September 29th, 1991, at a con. And then at the El Capitan in November 13th, 1991, and then worldwide November 22nd, 1991. So this was a few short months after I was born. Actually, the original release was 4 days after I was born, or 5 days after I was born. So 1991, good year. So yeah, like we stated before, I mean, we're not going to go into too much behind the scenes stuff. We kind of touch base on some of the crucial parts when it comes to like the animation style and how crucial this was to animation and how it just revolutionized animation as a whole. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the plot of the original animated movie, and then we will talk about the 2017 live action remake, and we'll kind of put them head to head, even though most people that are listening will probably go, we already know who the winner is. But that's not the fun of it, people. You got to listen to the whole episode and then make your decision. So this movie opens up to the legend, so the story about the prince who is just a piece of shit, and he's mean to an old haggard lady who just needs some shelter, and he's like, get out of my castle. And she's like, well, if you're going to be such a douche, I'm going to turn you into a hideous beast. And according to this movie, in this moment, he's only 11 years old. But I digress. And so it's like, wow, that's kind of harsh. And also, I'm going to turn all of your help into just pieces of furniture or, cups and shit. And you're like, this is pretty rough. But it's all told.
Swamp.
Get out of my swamp. But the thing is like it's all told on the stained glass windows. It's not you don't actually see any of the characters, which I actually like in this one. And the whole thing is that if he doesn't fall in love before his 21st, before he turns 21, or when he turns 21 in the final pedal drops, that he has to stay a beast forever, and then everybody else has to stay whatever they got turned into. And then he has a mirror that he can see pretty much anything. He just has to talk to it. We then jump forward to meeting Belle, and we get we get her song where she's singing around the village. Now, here's the thing. In this one, she's weird, but the town seems to like her, which we'll talk about the way that she's treated in the next one, because it's not the same at all. They all talk about how like she's weird because she likes to read and she's just not a normal girl. And of course she doesn't like Gaston, the big hunk of the town, even though he is the worst person ever.
Yeah.
And but everybody seems to like her. Like they seem to respect her. Like they just find her weird. They find her to be a nerd. And and all the men want to be with her. It's not even just Gaston. There's like all the other guys that are around town is like, we want her too. And it's like, damn. All right. Yeah. This movie's kind of violent, by the way. Like they show a duck get shot. I was like, damn. And not just like off screen too. I was like, poor Donald.
No, yeah.
And we meet the meathead Gaston, who is just the generic meathead, like I'm better than everybody, and just says the worst things ever. He's just awful. And then we have LeFou, who's just this little tiny like oaf who just does anything Gaston tells him to do. He's kind of he's one of those characters that just, to me, I feel when we talk about the 2017 version, this is a character that has changed drastically and done better.
He's just a he's just the oafish sidekick in this movie, and that's it.
Yeah. So Gaston, of course, he wants to be with Belle, and he's just a dick about it. Like he just doesn't know how to properly talk to her. He's just like, "You're gonna marry me someday," and she's like, "No, no, I'm not. Not doing that." And in order for her to fall in love with him, he's just gonna make fun of her dad, call her dad crazy and all that stuff. I was like, "Yeah, this is working out for you, bud."
This is a way to win her over.
So we meet Maurice, who is a very eccentric inventor who everyone thinks is crazy. He creates something that he creates something. He finally gets it to work, and he's like, "All right, Belle, I'm out," and just like leaves. It's like you barely get to meet him. You can barely get to see him. He's just like, "I'm out." We then see him in the woods. I was like, dude, did you leave so fast that you like forgot your map? You forgot where the hell you were going? But because he immediately gets lost in these woods. And of course, like you get the tree that gets struck by, in the animated one, the tree gets struck by lightning, right? Where it like traverses the two paths, where one is like bright and sunny and the other one is dark and scary.
I think so.
Yeah. Now, of course, in an animated movie, animals can be more emotive. So Philippe, who is the horse, is another character in this movie, whereas when we see him in the live action version, he's just a horse. Like he's not much of a character other than they ride him around. So like there's the scene where they get
this isn't a movie where all animals talk, you know.
Yeah. But they get to the fork in the road, and Maurice, of course, wants to go down the dark, scary path, and Philippe's like, I want to go down that path. That one looks better.
Yes.
And so then there's I think this is when something gets struck by lightning. It scares the horse, and then they see the wolves, and Maurice gets chased to the castle. So he goes in to try to like take shelter for the night because he's cold and all that stuff. And he starts hearing, of course, Cogsworth and Lumiere are talking to each other, and he's, trying to figure out what's going on. It's weird. He's just hearing voices, nothing. And this is when he meets the Beast. It's one of those things where, the Beast kind of just takes him prisoner just because he's in the castle.
I mean, you come into my house and I'm gonna lock you up somewhere.
Like, bro, what are you doing? So this is when we go back to the village, and Gaston plans to propose to Belle in the worst way possible. And he comes on because he always comes on so strong and just bullish. And it's like, dude, what are you doing? And of course, you have like, there's always other women in the town that are just wooing over him and want him. And he's just like, nah, I want the one I know I can't get. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
no. Oh, no. So, yeah, she tells him no. She's like, I'm never going to marry you. Get away from me, weirdo. Go do something else. And so he goes away, and then we get the song about how she wants her life to be, there's more to her life than, being Mrs. Gaston. And as she finishes up her song, Philippe shows back up and is like, yo, your dad got taken by a beast. But she's, yeah. And she's like, all right. And then hops on and just rides away. And we then go, she makes it to the castle. And Chip is so excited. So Chip, of course, if you don't know, is the little teacup with the little chip missing. That's why his name is Chip. And Lumiere rushes in. And of course, like, she comes in and Lumiere's just like, oh, it's her. It's the woman who's going to change everything. It's like, she just got here. Like, Cogsworth is, as much as he is like negative, he's right most of the time. Like, he's like, you gotta chill out, Lumiere. Like, she just showed up. We don't even know who she is. Like, how do we know she's the one?
Cogsworth is the voice of reason.
He really is.
I wonder how many people have showed up at that door that he thought was the one before her. And there's like a tally.
There's a room just full of skeletons.
Yes.
It has to be.
I'm glad he said it because I was gonna say it. Like,
so
what's in the West Wing? Oh, you don't want to go there.
So did you guys notice that in the castle in the animated version, all of the sculptures are just different versions of the beast? Like, if you look at some of like it's like a lot of like the columns of like different things. It's different iterations of the beast that they came up with when they were trying to figure out what they wanted the beast to look like in this movie.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. Little tidbit there. So yes, this is when you get a full blown look at the beast, and I like the design of the beast in this, and we will get to what I feel about the live action version. So yeah, the whole thing is like, he's my prisoner, and she's like, well, I'll change spots with him. And he's like, fine. So he releases Maurice. She takes his place, and Maurice has to ride back into the village to tell the village like that she was taken by a beast. And then we get the Gaston song in the pub, and it's a good song. I like the song, but it just shows that Gaston is just a piece of shit. So this is when Maurice shows up to the pub right after the song's over, and he's just like, hey, Belle got taken by a beast, so I need all you guys to come and help me get her back. And they're like, haha, beast, there's no such thing, crazy man. And she's like, and of course, Gaston's like, ooh, I got an idea. Since everyone thinks Maurice is crazy and Belle will marry me, why don't I lock Maurice up in the asylum to then tell Belle, if she doesn't marry me, that he has to be in there forever? And I was like, solid plan, bud. That means you're going to be in a loveless marriage. I don't think Gaston cares.
No, they're going to be sleeping in separate rooms.
Oh, yeah. So Belle doesn't. We then go back to the castle, and this is when, of course, the beast, of course, is very beast-like. So he's very angry. He, sees that they had set up food for her, and he was like angry. He's like, nah. Like, she's gonna eat with me. If she doesn't eat with me, she doesn't eat at all. So he goes up there to try to persuade her to come down. She doesn't want to come down. He gets angry, pretty much tells the whole kitchen crew she don't eat unless she eats with me. So he leaves. And then, of course, they're like, don't worry about him. We're going to feed you. Don't worry. So they bring her down. And this is when we get Be Our Guest, which is a great song.
Such good.
It's one of the songs from this movie.
Yeah. And we also find out that Lumiere and the Duster are a thing. They're a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So we then see Belle exploring the castle. She finds the beast room. It's in the West Wing, which is not the spot. It's the one area they don't want her to go to. This is like, no, of any place we don't go there. We see the picture of the prince before he was turned, and I read that. So like, there's the part where she like is going to move the pieces back to see like what he looks like, and then you see the flower glow behind her. So the flower actually glows because it doesn't want her to know what he looked like. Because the whole thing is she needs to fall in love with him as he is. So as the beast. So
interesting. I didn't think about that.
Of course, but then it's just like this Belle's just like, I'm gonna take the little cover off. I want to touch this rose. No, it's not yours.
What does this feel like?
And of course he gets mad, and I was like, I'd be mad too. You came into my room and you just touched my rose. Get out of here. And so she's like, and like runs away. And she gets on Philippe. She rides into the woods, and she gets chased down by wolves. And you know, she's fighting them off until the beast comes, stops the wolves from attacking her, but he gets wounded. He passes out. In this movie, how the hell did she get the beast back to the castle?
Hitch him up to the horse.
Literally, okay. Doesn't really tell us that, but it's one of those things where it's like he collapses, and then it's like next scene he's in his bed. And you're like, okay.
She wraps a rope around his leg and
just grabs his. So yeah, so Belle cleans him up back at the castle. And then we go back to the village where Gaston works it out with the guy from the asylum to lock up Maurice unless Belle agrees to marry him. And he is like all about it. This asylum director or whatever the hell the title is for this guy. I'm just like, he's like, I love it. I was like, oh my God. So the Beast and Belle, they grow closer. They're having their thing. They're going out. They're walking around in the snow. They're having snowball fights. In this one, he's very excited about showing her the library. He's like, you know, close your eyes, you know, you got to wait. And then he gets to see, because she loves to read. And of course she only gets to read a certain number of books in the village. So this is a huge opportunity. She gets to read a lot of books now.
Yeah.
And, this is when we get the song, Something That Wasn't There Before. And we then get the beast gets cleaned up, and we get the famous ballroom dance scene, which is this is when we first see like that mix of traditional animation with the CG, which actually looks really damn good. And this is when we get the song Beauty and the Beast, which is sung by Angela Lansbury, who originally it wasn't going to be. She actually didn't want to sing the song because she didn't feel she had a very good singing voice. And they told her, hey, just record it and we'll see how it goes. And so she did, and then they kind of were just like, "Yeah, we're gonna put it in," because they just felt confident enough it was gonna work, and it fits.
This is good.
It's really good.
She does a good job.
So the Beast shows Belle the magic mirror, and of course she wants to see what her father's up to, and of course it's not anything good because he's being locked up in an asylum, and she's like, "I gotta go," and he's like, "Well, you're free. You know, you gotta go." Save your father. You're free. You don't have to be here anymore. So Belle goes back to the village, saves her dad, and they're all like, oh, he's telling us the stories about a beast and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, it's true. And of course, the beast gives her the mirror. So she's like, look, like, show me the beast. And so they see it in the mirror. And of course, Gaston steals the mirror and he's like, all right, this beast that has been in a castle for 10 years. It has done nothing to us, but we need to go kill the beast. And it's like, this makes no sense. Also, I do want to mention earlier before we got Be Our Guest, Lumiere, or in the song Be Our Guest, Lumiere states that they have been this way for 10 years. That's where I got the age of 11. That's when the prince turned into the beast. This was a mistake. So they actually fixed it for the song in the live action version because it doesn't make sense. So the village is like, we got to kill this beast that's has done nothing to us in a castle we didn't even know existed. So they show up, they knock down the doors, they have a fight, like the villagers have fights with the furniture and all the things inside the castle. We also get a Wilhelm scream in an animated movie, which is hilarious. Like some guy gets flung out the front of the castle.
Yes.
Like, nice. Oh man. And Chip is actually the one who releases Belle and Maurice from the back of the carriage, the asylum carriage there. Because Chip actually hitches a ride with Belle when she leaves. And so Gaston fights with the Beast on top of the castle. It's a cool fight. And Beast gets stabbed by Gaston, but Gaston ends up falling to his death, which is great because that guy sucked. We then see the Beast dying. And of course, this is when Belle professes her love for him. And before, before he fades away, he is turned back human again. And they fall in love and the curse is lifted. Everybody turns back human again. And and then we get the final dance scene, which is just the final dance from Sleeping Beauty that they drew over.
Yep. They did
the
that.
love the amazing thing about Disney animation, they reuse a lot of scenes from prior movies because it's actually the reason they did it was because they didn't have enough time to draw an entire dance scene. So they just were like, well, we have this other one. We could just draw the characters. Because if you look, it's so funny because like all the side characters that are on the outside of the dance floor are all just static. Like there's no movement, which I mean, that's not abnormal for animation. But yeah, that's that is probably the shortest plot crunch I've ever done on this show. But that's the plot of Beauty and the Beast. The animated version from 1991. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the 2017 animated version, and we're going to go through and talk about the differences, what they added, what they didn't do, and why is this movie an hour longer than the animated version? Why? So,
why not?
Sure. I just remember pausing the movie at a certain point and going, there's still 51 minutes of this thing? All right. So, Angela, do you remember the first time you ever saw this one?
We watched this one together.
Some streaming service.
It had to have been a streaming service because we've not had cable or anything in years. So it had to have been a streaming service, and we didn't watch it in theater. No, I do not. I just know we watched it together. It hasn't been too terribly long ago.
Couple years at least.
Because I do remember.
Came out in 17. We probably watched it in like 19 or 20 or something like that.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of this that I do remember seeing. There's some bits that I'm like, oh, I don't remember this, but
I remember that time you got really mad the first time we watched it. You're like, I don't remember there being this many black people in this movie.
Oh no.
It's just a joke. Calm the fuck down. I had to get one in, okay? I haven't been talking very much. Finish.
I just spit. There's a few scenes that I do remember. Like, this didn't happen. Yeah. Why is this happening?
I just kept looking over at my wife like, was this in the other one?
Yeah, there was a couple of those.
We will get to my biggest complaint about this movie very, very soon. Yeah, I mean, as I stated before, this is my wife's favorite movie. The animated, animated version was my wife's favorite movie at the time. So, of course, when this was announced, she was kind of excited, and I was like, I love Disney, so I'm a sucker for just watching anything that they do. And I was like, okay, let's see. It's more of just the intrigue of like, how is it gonna be? I don't think we saw this in
her down here. You need to get her down.
Yeah,
I
don't.
I want to hear her. I want to hear her.
I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But I mean, I don't think we saw this in theaters. I don't remember, but I do remember buying the Blu-ray because I think this was like one of the last Blu-rays I bought when I worked at Walmart because I had ended up getting a new job at the end of 2017. So yeah, I mean, I remember watching it and I had a good time with it. It just there's just a lot of things wrong with this movie. And we're going to get to one that's just a big gripe for me, and I'm going to complain about it a lot during this second half of this episode.
Oh no.
But let's talk about some of the financials and stuff for this movie. So, this movie was directed by Bill Condon, who was a director for a director on Dreamgirls, The Twilight Saga: Breaking Dawn Part 1 and 2.
Bill Condom.
Bill Condon. No, Bill Condon. It was written by Steven Subortsky and Evan Spilatopoulos.
Wow. How long does it take you to learn how to spell that one?
We didn't mention it before, but there were like 8 to 9 writers for the animated version. Wild stuff. This cast is stacked. Emma Watson, coming off of the Harry Potter movies, and my first like true crush when I was a kid. She plays Belle, of course. Dan Stevens, who plays Prince Adam / the Beast.
Dan.
Luke Evans as Gaston. What's that?
Sorry, Dan. I don't know who the fuck Dan Stevens is.
He was in the show Legion, which was like an X-Men spin-off show. Yeah. He was in. He's been in a bunch of stuff that I've watched. It's not. He was Lancelot in Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, which I think was the third one.
In Downton Abbey.
This is all shit that I've not watched. That would make sense why I didn't recognize him. You're like a stacked cast. I was like, who's this asshole?
Okay, I mean, I say stacked cast, and I mostly probably everybody but him.
I know. I'm just one
of them. Luke Evans, who plays Gaston, I enjoy his work. Of course, he's been in a lot of stuff, but he was in a couple of the Fast and Furious movies. He played the villain of that. He was also in the really bad Pinocchio live action remake that came out last year. Kevin Kline, who plays Maurice, who is married to another one of my biggest crushes, Phoebe Cates from Gremlins. Josh Gad, who plays LeFou, who, like I stated earlier, I think is the better version of the character. I know a lot of people have like their feelings on Josh Gad. I think I like him in this movie.
I liked him.
I thought he did a really good job. He made it more of a character.
Yeah, I like it.
LeFou kind of was just a bumbling idiot who was just would do anything Gaston would ask him to do. Where this one, he does, but he also has a conscience. So like he does things for Gaston because he's secretly in love with Gaston, which a lot of people had problems with.
Who gives a shit?
Seriously. We have Ewan McGregor, who plays Lumiere, who I thought was another one. Like I said, I think the performances were fine. Did you not like Lumiere in this one?
No, I know a lot of people had a problem with how people sang in it. I'm not one to judge people on whether they can sing or not. I think everybody that sang in this did great.
Mm-hmm. I thought the songs were fine.
But no, I love everybody's performance in this. Like, yes, I will nitpick at certain things, but I love their performances.
We have Stanley Tucci, who plays the piano. I don't know what his name was in this movie. All I know is that he gets turned into a piano. Oh, he's Maestro. I think Maestro.
Yes,
was he in the animated one? Was Maestro in the Okay.
No.
We had Ian McKellen, who played Cogsworth, who I thought was also great.
Yes.
We had Audrey McDonald, who plays Madame de Garderobe, who is the wardrobe. We have Juju Mabartha Raw, who plays Plumette. Oh, why is that name familiar? Oh, I know you. What the hell? What do I feel? Oh, she was in The Morning Show, and she was in Loki. Got it. We have Hattie Morathan as Agatha, who I guess is the new character, but not a new character. It's just a character we see more than we saw in the original. because she plays. So Agatha is like, she's a peddler, but you also find out she's the enchantress who puts the spell on the beast and the entire castle. Where in the original animated version, you just see her picture in the stained glass when they tell the story, but she doesn't ever show up again. We had, and then of course the legendary Emma Thompson who plays Mrs. Potts. So yeah, this stack cast who I think do a great job with what they're given. But here we go. So this movie opens up a lot different. Well, it opens up similar to the original, but it's a lot different because you actually see the party that's going on, and you can definitely tell the prince is not 11 years old. This is a grown-ass man. I think Dan Stevens at this point was probably in his mid-30s.
I think 34
Yeah,
is what I read.
So yeah, you can't pass that off anymore. So yeah, he's just a douche. He's a prince. He's a, preppy prince who gets everything he ever wanted, and of course he sees, peasants or, people of, less value to him, somebody he could just kind of kick to the curb. Yeah. And she turns, it turns into a beautiful enchantress, and she curses him, and you actually see her turn him into the beast to a degree. Like, it's more of a zoom in, and you get the whole thing where you got a lot more lore on it too, where it tells you that it pretty much, the castle and the land around the castle are cursed and pretty much erased from the memories of the village. So you know why the villagers have no idea about this castle. And to be honest, this movie's a lot darker, way darker than the animated version, because in this version, at the end, if he doesn't marry before the last petal falls, he stays a beast forever, but also all the people that got turned into things permanently turn into those items. And not just like they have to live like that forever. They literally freeze into those items, which is just horrifying. And also, as every petal falls, the castle slowly breaks apart. I liked all those elements. I thought it was cool, but maybe it was a little too dark, especially for children. Especially, children
really,
sorry.
Is this really for kids?
No, it's for it's for people like us who grew up with this movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's for us.
Absolutely. But I did like those elements. I thought those elements were a good addition. It gave us a little bit more of a background.
Maestro would have been screwed, though.
I know, he's missing all those keys.
No keys left. I love it, though.
We then jump to the village, where we get the same kind of opening where Belle is singing. We get the song about how Belle's a weirdo. But the villagers are just weirder towards her. Like, they don't like her. They're like, she's weird. She reads, and she's not like us other girls, so she's weird. We don't like her. Like, everyone's so mean to her.
Especially the girls, the sisters or whatever that are singing. They're all like snotty. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
And like their mom is like, oh, she's not like us. And they're like, yeah, she's not like us. And I'm like, well, nobody else is dressed like you, so who's the weird one now?
Oh, I forgot to mention this movie had a budget of, actually, it was released March 17th, 2017, so St. Patty's Day of 2017. And it had a budget between 160 and 255 million dollars, and it made 1.26 billion dollars. Billion.
Wow. I can see that.
It's wild. The original had a $25 million budget and made $440 million. So, damn. That's pretty damn good, too. But back to the plot. So yeah, nobody likes Belle in this town except for who was this guy? The librarian? Like, who was he? The guy that she's like friends with, who she shares his books.
Yeah. She was friends with the librarian in the animated one, but here's my qualm with his library in the live action one. He had like 12 books.
Yeah.
In the animated one, he had a bunch.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, but yet she mentions the fact that, like, oh, I've already read all these, so I'm just going to read this one again.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Well, it
okay.
kind of makes sense if it's like a small
Like-
hamlet, like out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
They're not going to have much.
But
also no one else in this village reads. So that's
Yeah.
probably why it's so small.
And I mean, he had a whole wall full of books in the animated one. Like he had so many.
I think they tried to make him more historically accurate
I guess.
at times, not all the
I
time.
guess.
So we meet Gaston, and Luke Evans' performance as Gaston is drastically different to what we get in the anime version. He's a dick, as Gaston needs to be, because that's just the way this character is supposed to be. But I don't know, he's not as like pushy about things, and he's not as like, he doesn't say the shitty things like right off the rip. Like he tries to be nice in a way, as nice as he can be, but then like it's when he gets rejected is when the creepy, just shitty things start to come out of him. And then we also meet LeFou, who I think is just a more well-rounded character. I think Josh Gad does a very good job at giving us a completely different character than we got in the animated version. And this is a character not a lot of people, from what I've seen, not a lot of people like this character because of the fact that they changed him so drastically. They made him a gay character. Who cares? I think it flowed very well to what they were trying to tell. I mean, listen, I don't know what Disney tries to do. I don't know if it's because of an agenda or whatever the fuck they're trying to do, but I think it fit well to what their plan was, and having him be in love with Gaston but also not trying to show it. But that's why, and that's more of why he does everything for Gaston, because he's hoping one day maybe Gaston is going to love him back. But yeah, I really enjoyed Josh Gad's interpretation of this character.
It wasn't like thrown in your face. You get those episodes of shows where they have to introduce the gay character and like that's all it's about.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was like
It's not
right
thrown
in your face.
No.
No, like you see it during their song together,
Mm-hmm.
but then you don't see it again until the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think they did a good job with it. So yeah, I think it was a good interpretation of the character. We also meet Maurice, played by Kevin Kline, who is also a very drastically different character than we got with the Maurice in the animated version. Like Maurice in the animated version is very energetic, very like he seems like somebody who back in those days would be deemed as crazy. Like I don't know exactly what time this all takes place. I'm guessing like late 1700s, early 1800s, I think, probably whenever the story was written. But like this is just a normal guy, just
and he's an
things.
artist.
Yep.
He's an artist in this one, which I kind of wish that they would have taken his little the thing he makes that he takes with him.
Yeah.
It's like a diorama type thing.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that they would have made it do something like taken his engineer side, inventor side, and his artistic side and kind of like meshed it where it like would either like turn or light up or do something. I think it would have been kind of cool to see them take both of those sides.
Then this movie would have been 3 hours long, Angela.
Well, true, but
No, I know. I completely understand what you're talking about. There's some crucial. I think there was things they could have taken out to maybe include that piece of it. But yeah, he's just a normal guy who's just living his life, and he's building stuff. He's like you said, he's a painter, and he, of course, like we also get the backstory of Belle and how her mother died, and we still get the thing of like her asking, am I odd, Dad or Papa, and he's like, odd, my daughter? Why would you think something like that? And if my kid said, am I odd? I'd be like, yes, you are. You're my child.
You get it honestly.
And yeah, and then I mean, this movie kind of plays out very similar to the animated version with some things included. We get new songs. We get did you like the songs that they added that weren't from the originals?
Yes and no. Just because I felt like it wasn't gonna take away from anything if it was left out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, 2.5 hours for a movie like this is just too long for me.
yeah,
Like, it's
yeah.
just like, how is it this long?
I do like the whole scene where he's riding Philippe. I do like the whole wolf
Oh
chase
yeah, that is pretty cool.
thing. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, he
The only
gets
thing is when Philippe goes back to the village, like, how did Philippe get back?
right. He just knew.
Like,
He's like a dog. Just get back to his house. So I do like looking at the animated version compared to this one. I do like when Maurice shows up to the castle and he goes in there and he's trying to like get warm and stuff. He's not just going in there and doing whatever he wants. He's trying to
yeah.
announce he's there
Mhm.
constantly. He's like, "Hey, I just want to warm up. I don't know where you are, but I'm gonna go over the fire and warm my ass up."
I do. Yeah, he like sticks his ass
Yeah.
in front of the fire.
And of course, you hear like Cogsworth and Lumiere talking in the background, and all that stuff. And I like the design of the castle too. I think the castle looks pretty cool because it's a lot
Yeah, it
darker
looks
and
really.
creepier.
Oh yeah.
And in this version, compared to the animated version, where he just kind of gets taken prisoner just randomly in the animated one,
Mhm.
where this one he promised Belle he would get her a rose, and
Yes.
so he goes to the back into the garden and tries to take one of the white roses back there, and the beast shows up, and this is when we get the first look at the beast, and he looks awful. I hate the design of the beast in this movie.
I like everything but
He
this right
looks
here. I
so
hate his
bad.
lips.
For one,
His lips are like
listen,
all
we
the
talk
time.
about CGI a lot because we've covered a lot of movies that use heavy CGI. This movie uses a lot of CGI because most of the characters are CGI. The beast just looks like they didn't have enough time to finish him because he just doesn't fit in the environment around him. Anytime he's with Belle, I like the voice. I like the fact that it's Dan Stevens' voice kind of modulated to sound like the beast.
Yes.
And I like the horn look, everything, but why did they have to make him look human in the face? It looks so bad. We're gonna put pictures of the beast from the animated and the live action because it just why you
He's
had
got
such a great
duck lips.
design. He does. It's so bad. And the thing is like this movie could have been so much better if he wasn't so distractingly bad. Like his design. I'm not saying the performance is bad. It's just how he looks and how he flows. I'm just like, oh no, what happened? It just takes you out of the movie. And
There's like when he's laying when he's laying in the bed and like
yeah.
his horns keep hitting the pillow, I'm like, is his horns going through the pillow? Like there's one
They
scene
got some
where
tips.
his horn just disappears, and then the next scene it's like, okay,
Oh,
they took a little
no.
time. They
Oh,
took a little
no.
time to make sure it looked like,
Where did it go?
okay.
But yeah, so of course Maurice gets taken prisoner because he tries to steal the rose, which is a better, I think, a better version of that. And then of course Philippe rides back to the village, alerts Belle, and Belle rides back to the castle to confront whatever. And she goes up and she confronts the beast. And now the beast's attitude in this movie is very different than the beast's attitude in the animated version. He's not like in the animated version. It's one of those things where it's like right to the point. Like he's like, oh, he's smitten by her. Where this one, he's just like, your father's a thief. Like that's why he's here. And like, it's not about falling in love with Belle or whatever. I don't even think he realizes, sees her for that in that way. Just the look and the design of the beast just throws me off, man. It's just so off-putting.
It's way too humanoid. More
Yeah.
like super hyper humanoid.
I said it's like every time he talks, it's like they had to force his lips out further and further. Like it was.
It's so
just bad.
off-putting.
Like they took
No,
took the end of Pringles and like.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I like the Beast's character more in this than I did the original, but I like the actor that played the Beast in the animated one better because this dude, Dan, what's his face? Stevens, that's it. He just seemed to lack some of the intensity as the Beast at times.
Well, I think
But,
that's why it was a completely different character because like in the animated version, he's very like he has beast mentality too. Like where I feel like this beast is just a human as a beast. Like he just looks like a beast, but he's still that same person underneath.
Yeah.
Where in the animated version, he also wasn't just turned into the beast like physically, but like internally, he's also has those beast type things. Because like when he gets angry, he's slashing things and ripping things apart, and like he's running on all fours. I love the look of the beast in the animated version. I was like, why couldn't you just copy that? It would have looked so good. Maybe. I don't want to say truly it would look good, but it probably would look better than this. So yeah, so we get the whole same thing. Maurice and Belle, they switch spots. And Belle, Maurice rides back into town, and they we get the Gaston song, which is LeFou's the one who kind of takes center stage for the song in this version.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more musical. It's a lot more of a, that's what these live action movies do when it comes to the songs. It turns into a musical. And after that, Maurice shows up to, say, oh, there was a beast. Belle's been taken by the beast. And at first, like, Gaston is different because he's like, oh, well, take us to the beast. Take us to where you could find, or where he was. And so Maurice ends up taking them to the fork in the road, but it's all like better now. Like the tree that was struck by the lightning is fixed. And so he doesn't know where to go. And so they just think he's crazy. So they tie him to a tree. And then Agatha finds him. And this is when you kind of get the hint that Agatha might be the enchantress. Like I at least I kind of felt that way. Like because of the fact that like in the beginning when you see her show up, it doesn't look like Agatha, but it's kind of like, I wonder if this is her disguise. Like she's secretly seeing things as they go on. She wants to make sure, she has to physically see the beast fall in love.
Yeah.
So we then see, the whole Belle thing where Belle meets all the different characters of the castle and, freaks out at first and, meets the wardrobe and everybody else. And, she doesn't want to go to dinner. We get the Be Our Guest scene, which I think is a little bit, I like this version. I like the fact where like they want her to eat, but every time she tries to eat, the food gets pulled away from her because like they're in their, during their performance.
I was like, I don't think she ever ate like at all.
I gotta say, I think Emma Watson is a fantastic actress. I think she is great, but she just seems so stiff in this movie. Like I don't think the energy that you get from her animated counterpart just doesn't bleed through to this. Like she always like there's some times where you watch a certain scene with her where she has to interact with like the beast, which I can't say it's easy interacting with a CG character, which I know that they did like motion capture for him on a lot, so she wasn't actually acting with nothing, but she just seemed like she was lost in certain scenes. Like she didn't know where to look or like how to act in certain ways. I'm not saying it was throughout the entire movie, but I don't know. I don't know how much of a fan I was of her Belle, but she tried. So we get, just the normal stuff where, she doesn't want to eat dinner. We get the whole thing, and she ends up finding the West Wing, just like in the other one. And she finds the flower, but unlike the animated version, she doesn't just touch the damn thing or take the glass off. Like, I want to see it. She's like a child in the animated version where she's like,
what's this?
I can't see through glass.
Yeah.
But
there's a glare on it. I can't see.
But yeah, it's so yeah, the beast shows up, he gets pissed off, and then the whole thing, she runs away until she gets attacked by wolves. Also, we get to see the fact that every time the petal falls, a piece of the castle crumbles, and then like the object, so like Cogsworth starts feeling weird, so like he starts turning like stiff, and then he would turn back to himself again. So like they're slowly changing as each petal falls. They never really explain though. Does the beast stay as he is as a beast, or does he turn into a full-fledged beast? I would have liked to know that answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she gets saved by the beast after the wolves attack, and this is when you get like an explanation of how she gets him back to the castle, because she literally goes up to him and goes, "Can you stand? Because I need you to stand, because I ain't get you back if you don't stand up." She nurses him back to health, all that stuff. And then this is the difference between with this beast compared to the animated one is that this beast doesn't really have that, like, he's not like overly excited. Like he shows her the library, but it's like casually. He like brings her to the library. He's like, look at all my books. These are my books. Have fun. She's like, cool. Where in the other one, he's like, I'm so excited to show her the library. You know, close your eyes type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, here's some books kind of thing. Like, oh,
Have-
you like books? Here's
Yeah.
You like books? Here's the books.
She's like, have you read them all? No.
Some of them are in Greek.
Yeah.
He's like, are you joking? He's like, no. they're on Greek.
Yeah, we get the song, you know, we get the song where they're out, you know, doing their thing outside, and we get the snowball fight, even though she gets hit with the biggest snowball ever, and then gets up going, like,
She's so fucking
He like whops her in the face with his big old snowball, and he's laughing.
so was she though. She was like,
I'm like, you might want to check and make sure she doesn't have a concussion.
Like, yeah.
you talk about this is 1750. They don't know what concussions are.
They don't know what abuse is either.
No. So we then get a whole, like, a new thing where Maurice gets set free by Agatha. He goes back to the village. He's all clean, you know, dressed and all that. And Gaston comes back, and Maurice is trying to accuse him of leaving him out there, tying him to the tree and all that. But the problem is his little food doesn't stand up for him either. And so they just deem him crazy. So they're like, oh, and then Gaston gets the plan, as he does, where he's like, well, if I, you know, can lock him up, you know, Belle will have to marry me. And I was like, I don't think that's how that's going to work out.
No.
So we get the whole dinner scene and the dance in the ballroom scene, which is so fucking, to be honest, the scene sucked in this version. It looked awful. Like, at the tracking of the beast dancing with her, it was so off-putting. Like, he's like gliding across the dance floor. I was like,
And
oh,
here she is, like, she's like doing hopping. I'm like,
I was like, what is this? This is,
could they not have made it look a little bit more?
it's the most iconic. It's like one of the most iconic scenes in like cinematic history. Like, just that ballroom dance scene from the original. And it's like, oh, it looks so bad here. Guess what, guys? This made $1 billion.
Even at the very end dance, she's still like,
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
like,
It's, I mean, it's got to be so hard to act alongside a CG character.
I get it, but
but yeah, so she's shown the mirror, and she sees that her dad's being locked up, so she's got to go back. And in this version, she just goes in with the dress on, like she goes back to the village with the yellow dress, which in the last version she doesn't.
We skipped the book bullshit.
Yeah, the magic
right
book.
before the mirror.
Oh, right. In this version, there's a magic book,
and that's where you learn about her mom.
You like go. He can like travel to different places in the book, and they go to like the apartment that her dad and mom lived in when she was a baby, and you find out like her mom had leprosy. What the fuck did she have?
The plague.
She had the plague. Okay.
Plague, yeah.
And the dad had to leave her there because she didn't want Belle to get it. So that's why they moved out to the village. Yeah, I completely forgot about that added thing we did not need, which added a lot of time to this movie.
Because this is where you find out her obsession with roses.
Which doesn't make any sense. It's so dumb.
Because she doesn't know.
Like, they didn't even need to include that. If you want to include the reason Beast took her dad because he stole a rose, just have the Beast take her dad because he broke in.
Yeah.
So then we get all of the other scenes that we had talked about before. She goes back to the village to prove that the beast exists. And of course, we get the whole thing. Gaston takes it. And in this version, Chip doesn't go with her. They just unlock the lock because she had a pin in her hair. So and Maurice ends up unlocking it. And I like the whole thing where the guy who's like, he's like guarding the cart. And he just gives him, he's like, I think this is yours. He just hands him the lock.
Yeah.
But we also had to get the scene where she like rides away on the horse and like you just see the dress drop on the ground. I was like, oh, all right.
I know how she got the horse from the castle in the first place. Like, did her dad not take the horse back when he went back?
Unless he like sent the horse back to the castle.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Because I'm like, where'd the horse come from?
What happened here? But yeah, so Gaston and the village, they go to the castle to kill the beast, who did nothing to them for him to be worn to death. And yeah, this is when you kind of find out that the villagers' minds were wiped of the castle, because like a woman, the woman walks in, she's like, "Why do I feel like I know this place?" And then as they're fighting everything, Mrs. Potts comes and she sees a guy and she's like, "Mr. Potts," and I was like,
Yep.
"Oh shit!" And yeah, so you get this whole fight. You get like LeFou is like fighting with Gaston, and then like he sees that the piano falls on top of him. Gaston kind of leaves him, and so he's like, "I'm changing sides," and he becomes best friends with Mrs. Potts. Yeah, and then we get the very anticlimactic fight between Gaston and the Beast. It was very lame in this version. I didn't like it. It just
It's like shot 3 times.
it was just literally the Beast leaping across beams. Like he was leaping on rooftops the entire time, and then Gaston shoots
All
him.
buildings in a single bound.
He shoots the Beast twice and then ends up falling to his death again. It's just dumb. Yeah, and so of course as the Beast is dying, Belle, she tells him she loves him, and the Enchantress shows up. But you find out it's Agatha. You're like, "Oh shit, that's Agatha!" And then she turns into the beautiful Enchantress. And then she resurrects the rose, because you get the really depressing scene of, as the last petal falls, you see all of the objects around the castle starting to turn into just their objects. And oh man, the worst was Mrs. Potts trying to find Chip. Where's Chip? And then you think Chip is gonna crash, and then the thing catches him before he falls. I was like, this scene alone is better than anything else that this movie did. This was the best scene in the entire movie, because it literally made you emotional. I'm like, man.
I remember I shed a tear when I first watched it. I do remember that.
Like Lumiere.
Because I'm like, Chip.
No.
Also,
I did not like the look of Mrs. Potts and Chip in this movie. I don't like that their faces were like just painted on the side of the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really like it. To be honest, I wasn't a big fan of most of the designs of the objects. Because like Lumiere, they just made him like a humanoid candle. Like he just turned in. He's like, "Oh, he got normal legs and arms, but at the end they're candles." Where in the movie, he's a candlestick. He looks like a candlestick.
He had no legs.
Cogsworth at least looked like a clock in this one. But Mrs. Potts, Mrs. Potts and Chips was just, they were kind of scary looking.
No, it was the fucking armoire.
The wardrobe,
yes. The wardrobe, dude. That fucking cloak. I thought it was gonna eat Belle at least 2 or 3 times. It was just gonna turn into this weird boar fetish thing. I was like, this is not what I've signed up for.
Did you like the machine gun piano keys from Maestro?
That was awesome.
I love that. I love that. Like, I love when the wardrobe takes the 3 guys and dresses them up, and the one guy is just like,
yeah, the one guy's like, "I like this. I'm beautiful." But yeah, I mean that one scene at the end when they all turn like just into inanimate objects, just best scene of the entire movie.
yeah.
But she resurrects the rose, and the Beast turns human, and everybody turns human. We get to see, unlike the no, we did get to see everybody turn into humans at the end of the animated version.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we get to see, everybody, all the actors that do the voices. We actually get to see them in their form. Ian McKellen as Cogsworth is hilarious, because especially with the woman who comes up who's like, "Oh, I've missed you so much." He's like, "Please turn me back into a clock. Turn me back into a clock." Ian McKellen's so good.
It was Clotilda or whatever.
So funny.
It was the lady with the really big hair.
Yeah. I just feel bad for Mr. Potts, because like it wasn't just his wife who got turned into an object, his son too. I was like, damn. And my wife's like, "Yeah, I feel like the only reason they were turned into that is because she worked there and he was there with her." Yeah. I was like, that's interesting.
Especially in the beginning where he mentions that Belle runs across him in the village and asks him, he's like, "I'm looking for something, but I can't remember what it was."
Yep.
And it was them the whole time. A little foreshadowing.
That little spot there.
Yes, right at the very beginning of the movie. Yep.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we get our happy ending where they dance. They get Beauty and the Beast sung by this time by Emma Thompson, and yeah, that's the end of the movie. And yeah, so now we get to do some verses. So we're gonna do best Bells, Beasts, our side characters, Gastons, of course. And then by the end of this, we're going to talk about what was the better of the two, which I feel like we already know the answer to this, but we're going to go through everything else first. So let me get my notepad because I want to write all these down. Jesus. Pens flying everywhere, everybody. Hold on to your butts. All right.
I'm sitting on mine. I can't hold it.
So 91 versus 17. We're going to first start off with Belle.
Definitely not Emma Watson.
All right. Dan, do you
Sorry.
concur?
Yes.
I like her,
I
but
concur.
All right. So yeah, so I mean, listen, as I stated before, Emma Watson is great. And to be honest, I don't think she's terrible in this movie. I just don't think sometimes she seemed bored. Sometimes she just didn't have the energy that I feel like we should have gotten with this character. And maybe that's just the way they wrote her in this movie, especially since they did change the way the Beast was. So maybe they just kind of wanted to have I feel like they wanted to portray more of a stronger character because maybe they saw Belle in the original as like a little bit more airheaded, a little bit more ditzy, maybe a little bit more of just like the typical woman back then, where they were like they made dumb decisions. And
yeah,
like,
I mean,
oh my
it
god!
was
All right, cool, man. But this was, I feel like they made Emma Watson's like more of a stronger female character, which is fine. It just she just seemed more bored than anything. Like in the end, do you really feel like this Belle would have fell in love with the Beast? No, absolutely not. Now, speaking of that, I already know my answer because we've talked about it many times, but what is the better Beast? Or who is the better Beast?
Well, I like I said, I like the actor who played the Beast in the animated one, but I thought the Beast as a character was better in the live action version.
I have to agree with you, Dan. I do like the way that he is, like the way he acts. He's not just straight up like, I need to fall in love with this girl. Like he's just being a normal person.
I can't look at his face though.
It's that is why I have to pick the 91 version because his fucking the way this Beast looks is awful. It's a terrible design. And
even his nose
is
more humanoid as opposed to the Beast in the animated one actually has he
looks like a beast. He looks like a mix.
Yes.
Because I think he was like the design is like a mix of like 3 different animals. So yeah, he looked more intimidating.
He's got teeth. He has the lower teeth that stick out and like the very wide nose.
I mean, I think it's a slight edge for the 91 version. Just because of that reason. I think Dan Stevens' performance is good. I think it's not his fault that they created a very terrifyingly ugly character for him to portray. All right, next, let's talk about Gaston.
They're both assholes. I like the look of the animated. I like the look of the animated Gaston just because he talks about in his song that now he's larger than the side of a barge or whatever, whatever he says. Yeah. And I think that Luke Evans is just like more scrawny.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big guy, but he's definitely nowhere near what I would imagine Gaston being. But I mean, I guess it's hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you cast somebody who is going to be a good actor plus being fucking the rock-sized human being? True. I think Gaston is more of a character in the live action version. I think he's not just a meat. I mean, he's still a shitty person, but he's not a meathead. Like Gaston in the animated, he just sucks all the way around. Now, I don't know how we would rate that. Like, do we rate him based on how shitty he is, or do we just rate him based on like how good of a character he is?
Well, I mean, don't you think he's slightly shittier in the remake? Because in the other one, he just takes her dad, locks him in the insane asylum. This one, he ties him to a tree and then locks him in and tries to lock him in the insane
Yeah, he just kind of like leaves him out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're fine.
I think they're both.
You'll be fine.
I prefer Luke Evans. I like him as a character because like animated Gaston, I like because of just the memes that spawned from him back in the day.
Yeah.
There's some great ones, but I
Yes.
think as far as a character goes, I mean, for me, I mean Luke Evans. I mean, his character is just, even though he's not crazy, he's way more robust than the anime. He's not just, I need a bad guy. Here you go.
Yeah.
I have to agree. I think, I mean, it could be controversial, and I think people might be angry about it, but I think I'm going to give the edge to Luke Evans. I think his character of Gaston is just more well-rounded and more of a character who's, I mean, you can still tell he's the villain, but he does despicable things without it being like completely obvious. All right. I think our next character we can talk about, let's talk about Maurice. Papa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I
That's
like
cool.
the animated version more because, I mean, he's like that typical, like, eccentric, crazy little character that they always make in these Disney animated movies. And I just like the fact of, like, he just fits the bill of just like, yeah, you can easily be put in the insane asylum. He looks like a crazy person.
He seems to be more of the, I don't want to say crazy because, but yeah, he fits the more, like in this one, like he doesn't give you any, in the live action, he doesn't give you any inclination that he fits the crazy dad.
Yeah.
Like he needs to be put away.
Well,
Right.
Like you see him for 2 seconds saying, "Oh yeah, there's a beast."
well, I think they get away with that better in the live action version because everybody loves Gaston and he can manipulate the crowd believing what he wants.
True.
Which, go ahead.
But I think in the animated version, you see he's more like bouncing off the walls, hyperactive dad who's like, you know, gives you a reason more for physically gives you a reason.
Yeah.
Not just somebody's talked you into doing it. Like they physically see him because he's an inventor, not an artist. Like,
Exactly.
Well, he's not an artist, he's a clock.
no, in
Oh, he's
the
an
live
artist.
action, he's an artist.
But he works on clocks too.
But in
so he still
the-
has that one
yeah.
too. Which is actually, no, this will sound weird, but I actually like Kevin Kline. I like the live action version better because of the eccentric dad, because he's just that. He's literally just a catalyst. He's literally like the Sultan from Aladdin, the animated Aladdin, the animated version of Maurice. This one I like him because he feels, again, more grounded as this movie was trying to be, where he would be if he is an artist or he works on clocks. In this village of this size, that would probably be weird, as is a woman reading, but I think any woman reading at that time outside of royalty
I
would
mean,
probably
'cause
be.
They point that out in the live action where she's teaching the girl how to read. You teaching another one?
Exactly. But that's what I mean. Like it makes more sense, and like I think the whole angle of what happens with her mom is irrelevant. I don't give a shit about that part. It could have been cut from the movie. I thought it was not important at all.
Yeah.
But I liked him slightly better than the animated one. Like just slightly better.
I still like the animated one because he gives you a reason to be locked away for.
Yeah, but I agree. But I think that just goes more on Luke Evans being a shittier Gaston, because he can manipulate the crowd
Which
into
is
doing
true.
what he wants them to do, because it's Gaston. He's always right. He's the cool guy. Everybody likes him.
Yeah.
He's manipulating.
All right. Our next one we're going to talk about is LeFou. I as I stated before, I think the 17 version is the better version. I think he is better crafted. I think he's better performed, and he's more of a character in this one, unlike the animated version. So
Yeah.
that's an
Agree.
easy, I feel like it's
I
an easy
agreed.
one. I'm gonna do side characters. So that side characters we're just gonna do as everyone that's in the castle. I don't want to do each one individually. I think they can all be grouped together.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Animated.
Animated all the way.
Yeah, I feel like that's an easy one.
I think that's what a lot of these will go as. Like I said, I appreciate some of the depth they added to these characters, but I felt like most of the ones in the castle weren't really affected by that.
Yeah,
for the most part. So,
I mean,
and plus, I don't like we talked about their controversial designs and stuff anyway. And
I like the added maestro. But
Yeah, I liked a couple of the added characters, but yes, it can't be the originals. And then songs. What were like the better performances? Because all the songs from the animated version are in the live action version, plus some added ones that they did. But what are the best? What is the better performances?
I have to go with animated because still listening to Angela Lansbury sing gives me chills every time. Every time.
I agree, 100%.
I'm not again discrediting the job that they did on the live action one. And that they did a fine job for most of the songs. I didn't care about the new ones because I had no attachment to them. So
pretty much, I think. I mean, is there anything else we should vote on before we move on? I mean, I guess with the consensus would be, what is the better movie? By how we voted, you can't go wrong with the original, with the 1991 original, and I don't even think it's close. I think the animated original is just vastly superior to the live action remake. I appreciated what they tried to do. I think there are parts that are good of the live action one. I think some of the environments, I like the whole lore behind it. I like the story and how like that whole thing is. I like the way the beast is. Even though even with him looking horrendous, it's just so jarring because you know that most of this is CG, and there's times where it's just obvious, so obvious that it's just CG, and it just looks so off-putting. Like when she's running, like when she sings, it's the song after Gaston comes and she tells him that she's never gonna marry him. And she runs into the field. I'm like, holy shit, this looks awful. Like, it just looks so bad. Like, she's just running in front of green screens. Like, yay! Frolicking.
I'm like, they really could have.
Holy shit.
They really could have put her somewhere.
Find a field to film
it.
Please.
I mean,
where's the field they did Sound of Music? Come on, it's gotta be there still.
Exactly. Sound of Music did it. And it was beautiful.
Man. So Jesus.
Same place. Just take her there.
Right.
Helicopter in, plop her in, and take her out.
Well, that is it, everybody. So the 1991 animated film is the winner of our first week of our Versus series here, covering our favorite Disney movies. We do have a couple comments. We have a comment. We had a retweet on the comment. You got one, didn't you, Angela, on your post?
Comments.
All right, if you want to read yours first.
One is from Darren, Nostalgia Cast. He says, one of my least favorite movie experiences of all times. And then the other one was Charles, Repub 9989. He said, might be the only good live action remake. So we had
we got two completely differing opinions. Love it. Well, my one and only comment is from our good friends at Flicks and Friends podcast, who said nothing scarier than a human villain, but the live action movie did not do Gaston any justice. And then we had a retweet from a Miguel Ferrer, which I have to translate it because it's in Spanish. It says, for me, by far, the animated version of Walt Disney's Beauty and the Beast is my favorite of Disney's animated films. It's a cinematic masterpiece. The 2017 live action version does not reach the soul of that movie, and it's a fail, pretty much is what they say. So thank you so much for the comments, the retweets, all that. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I didn't post it on Instagram, unfortunately, but I try to post a couple days before we do our recordings so that we can get your guys' opinions on the movies that we cover. I got something else. So unfortunately, because we record these so far ahead, people won't hear their names be mentioned. But I finally started the Patreon. Finally published it. It's amazing. And we have 7 patrons already on the Patreon. So I want to shout out everybody who is a patron. So our first one being our good friend Johnny Browning was our
Heck
very
yeah.
first patron.
Thank you,
So
Johnny.
Johnny Browning, thank you so much. Doom Generation, thank you so much. We had the Flicks and Friends podcast, Billy Pennington, our own Dan and Angela, and the Baron's Hideout podcast. So thank you to everyone who dropped that $1 to become a patron of the Dissect That Film Patreon. We only have one tier, $1 a month will get you
Oh, no.
early episodes. So our episodes come out on Friday, and I'm going to try to get them out either Monday or Tuesday before that for the Patreon, for all the patrons. And so for $1 you can get early episodes, and then later on, once we start getting some other content created and worked out, we're going to be adding some more tiers and some more content for all of you. And and if it works out well enough, maybe we'll add some other perks. Yeah, it's very exciting. So thank you to everybody who supports us. And so next week, guys, we're going to be hopping over to Dan's pick, where we're going to be covering the 1967 The Jungle Book, along with the what year did it come out? 2016?
Something like that.
Jungle Book?
She's looking right now.
So technically, there was a live action remake of The Jungle Book from 1996, I think it was, which was technically the very first live action remake that Disney ever did, but we're not going to do that one.
2016.
We are going to be covering the 2016 live action remake because that one is closely linked to that 67 original. So we're going to be comparing those next week because, to be honest, I feel it's going to be a little bit different than it was this week, because this is one that is, when it comes to people voting on what is the best live action remake that Disney's ever done, Jungle Book is always towards the top. So it's very exciting to be able to compare two movies that I thoroughly enjoy. I love the original and I love the remake. So it's going to be a fun time next week talking about Jungle Book.
I want to say something real quick. Sorry. I want to thank both you guys for carrying the show for me today.
Dan is suffering right now.
I need to be sick
here.
more often.
That's
so
why
I can.
I know.
talk
I can
more.
just leave.
I'm just
It's
kidding.
fine.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, Dan, for being here, even if you really didn't want to be.
I did.
I tried to
I
talk
could have
about
easily
it.
just said I wasn't going to be here, but I wanted to be here.
But thank you for being here every week. Same to you, Angela. Thanks to for everybody for listening every week. We appreciate all the love and support you guys give us. We got a lot of fun shows coming up. As we said, we're going to be talking about Disney for the next few weeks, and then we're going to be bringing on some more guests because we've had a kick-ass time with all the guests that we've had on the show, and we can't wait to bring on some more. So it's going to be a good time. All right, everybody. You can follow us at Dissect That Film on all the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We don't do anything over there, but whatever. If you're already listening to the show or watching us on YouTube, but clearly if you haven't rated us yet, especially if you listen to us on Spotify, you can rate us 5 stars or whatever you think we deserve. Please do it. The more ratings we get on Spotify, the more ears we get into. We want more people to listen to the show. Same with Apple Podcasts, Good Pods. Leave us a rating, leave us a review, tell us how we're doing, tell us what you love about the show. Maybe leave us a suggestion on what you want to see on the show. And if you watch us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button because it's free. And hit that bell so you know when the episodes drop. And make sure to leave a comment down below. All right. We appreciate all the love and support. We'll see y'all again next week. Until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming. We are Dissect That Film, and this has been the Dissect That Film podcast, episode 102. See y'all again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.